Hi, it's Joe Remax coming to you from my office in Bangkok, Thailand. In this video, we're going to talk about foreign ownership of land in Thailand. So I have another video about ownership of condos, and that is pretty well straightforward. Anyone can own a condo in Thailand as long as it falls under certain criteria and certain criteria are met. Not really complicated. Today I'm going to talk about foreign ownership of landed property. And what do I mean by landed? Is anything attached to land, such as a townhouse, a single home, a piece of land. These are what I call landed properties. Under Thai law, foreigners are not allowed to own landed properties. The law in Thailand is enforced, however, there are ways around it. So what I'm telling you here is not as a lawyer, it's from my experience in what I've seen done in the industry. So please, my caveat is I'm not a lawyer. You should talk to a lawyer about these things. The question today is, I don't want a condo, or there's no condos where I want to live. I want to buy a piece of land and I want to have a little bungalow or something like that. How do I do it? You have a couple options. The most popular is to form a company and buy your land in that company. And I'll talk to you about that in a second. Another one is leasing land, and this is legal. If the title of the land stays with a Thai citizen, then that's fine. And you can lease for 30 years plus another 30 years. You can get a long-term lease and you can build on it. The easy case is 30 plus 30. So now we go back to option number one that I talked about, that a lot of people do, is setting up a company, and in that company you will hold the title for the land. It sounds good, but there's some pitfalls. So let's look at a few pros and cons on this. One is that you can own a villa or a townhouse or a piece of land in the name of that company. So that's great. You found a way to own the land. Another pro is that when you go to sell, rather than selling the title of the land and the associated taxes associated with that, you can sell the shares in the company, and of course there are no land transfer taxes when you exchange shares. So that is a benefit. The cons are that you really are skirting the law. The law is that foreigners are not supposed to own land in Thailand. Under Thai law, when you set up a company, it has to be 51% Thai owned. So this is to say that you actually cannot control a company. That's the way the law is designed. Now lawyers will structure it with proxy shareholders and so forth, and signing back their voting rights to avoid any fraud, that no one can sell your land from under you. So you can do something like this, and a lot of people have. Okay, so if you set up a company, there are a couple risks. One is that it needs to be done correctly. If it's not done correctly and there's 51% held by proxy shareholders and they do have voting rights, they do have the ability to sell off your asset. So that has to be done very carefully and make sure that you keep control of the voting. Another thing is expense. When you own a company, it has to submit tax returns every month. It has to fill in government forms. It has to do an audit once a year. So you have to factor in that extra cost of ownership. It's not free. So typically you're talking accounting on something like that would be about $100, $150 a month that you need to factor in. And then an additional about, I'm trying to think what the number is, it's about 15,000 baht, which would be about $700 a year to get your audit done. So think about that. You're talking maybe $200 a month to maintain the company, to hire an accountant to do all the forms and submission. The other thing is that once in a while, the government will kind of focus on these kind of shell companies and audit them. And if they're not creating an income and running a profit within a reasonable amount of time, they will say that you need to shut down this company and liquidate its assets. Hence, you need to be careful a little bit that whatever advice you get for establishing a company, that your legal counsel helps you and sets things up correctly. So those are the pros and cons. I know quite a few people that do manage to acquire a fixed asset on land, but you have to go in with the eyes open. You have to understand what the risks are. It can be done. Understanding that there's an inherent risk by skirting the law. I guess the worst case scenario would be that you are forced to sell at some point in time. So I hope that gave you some insight to some of the kind of advice you get from chat groups and Facebook and social media and all these experts on owning property. There are some gotchas. So be careful. And if you're a foreigner looking to buy property, certainly I would advise getting a lawyer involved. I would be careful that you select a good one. If they don't do the job correctly, if the job's not done correctly, you run the risk of losing your asset, which can be a significant amount of money. So backing up, condos, there's no problem. The law provides for that. If you want to do some kind of landed property, wrap it up very tightly with a lawyer, making sure that you've got everything under control, and understand that there'll be some extra costs involved to keep that company operational and running. And if you need any help, we're here. So thank you for listening, and hope to catch you guys later. Tune in next week for another video.